Good morning, good afternoon. This is Toyin, your Messery, and welcome to Ask Toyin. This week, I've been going live every day, bringing you questions that were submitted on my website at toyinyumessery.com/asktoyin. So, again, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today's questions, there are about two questions that I want to cover today, and they're centered around e-commerce and logistics. Okay. So the first question, I'm just going to get right to it. If you're online, do drop a comment, say hello, invite people. Yeah, we're doing this. So it is D, I will leave his last name out. He sent in a question, actually a bunch of questions, but I had to pick a few out of those. Um, and he said, taking Nigeria as a case study, what factors do you think need to be looked into when addressing e-commerce, right? The issues of e-commerce. He also said, what would you say attracts and keeps customers we get, on e-commerce platforms? And then lastly, he said, what are the greatest streams of income in the e-commerce space? The second question that I want to also address today is kind of related, and this was posed on Clubhouse. The first one was a submission, and then the second one was asked directly to me on Clubhouse, and I'll share the answer, at least the feedback I gave this person. Okay. So on Clubhouse, this logistics question was asked around, the person said, I have a logistics solution for my last mile delivery in my business. But it feels like that solution is something you could implement broadly for other people, and it could go into the logistics space as a business. And but he said he doesn't have capital for its implementation. And then he asked me, what do I advise? Okay, so those are the two groups of questions that I want to dive into today. So how are you doing? How's your week? Again, if you're watching live, do drop a comment and I'll be happy to do a shout out. So e-commerce, this is a hot topic. Part of the challenges, just to give you a background of e-commerce on the continent, as far back as 15, 16 years ago, the biggest challenge that the e-commerce space had or faced was digital payments, lack of it, right? As far back as 15, 20 years ago, there were a lot of possibilities. There were so many things people tried to do. I was also in that space back then. But the biggest challenge we faced 15 years ago was digital payments, right? You could definitely, create an e-commerce website and offer products to people on the website. But the mode of transaction, like if you connected to international payment companies, they were more likely to decline transactions originating on the continent. So so people had to use the website as a showcase, and they will use offline methods to collect payment, like bank transfers and all of those things, or cash on delivery or things like that. And then, the trust factor was one. Also, really just the technology maturation wasn't there when it came to payments. Fortunately, in today's world, that has been addressed. Digital payments has been addressed with, companies leading in that space and connecting the continent. And we're hosting I'll be hosting the retail in Africa very soon. And we're already in conversations to bring those at the leading front of, digital transactions on the continent, bringing them together to also educate people in terms of what's going on the continent. So anyway, so that's the background, is that 15 years ago, payments was the biggest issue, because when you have a transaction originating on the continent with another business on the continent, big challenge, you have to do bank transfer. Now, even if that transaction is originating on the continent, to even purchase from an international website, the likelihood of decline was higher than acceptance. But that has been resolved and fixed. Last week I was even in conversation with one of the leading payment solution providers. There are some things I'm testing out as well, but I'll let you guys know. So anyway, but today, fast forward to today, what is the biggest challenge that I would say e-commerce is facing on the continent is the back-end infrastructure logistics. That's that, a lot of times when I tell people, like, the background I have, my core competency is really this space, right? So sometimes, when you're talking to someone, they'll be like, oh, I'm not a lawyer, but here I'm telling you I'm an expert in this space. So what people did not realize, when you say e-commerce, everybody would like, yeah, it's a website. No, e-commerce is not a website. The most important part of your website is your operations, is the back end. In fact, in my previous life, part of my responsibility was, the strategy for 250 million of the back end for the world's largest retailer, in terms of everything that happens behind the scene that people do not see. You walk into a store, you buy, you shop, you leave. You don't understand, like, what's going on behind the scenes, all the back end support and infrastructure technology spend that goes on the back end to actually deliver on that promise to the customer. And that's what's going on the continent, is that people have underestimated the back end, what it actually takes, the complexity of the supply chain to actually make good on your promise to a customer. When a customer goes on a website, clicks purchase, and transacts on your website, the back end support, the logistics infrastructure, the warehousing, transportation, all of those things that has to be in place for you to fulfill that, seamlessly. That's really the biggest challenge that people are facing. In the past, people equated having a website to having a successful e-commerce business. Well, no, sir, no, ma'am. In fact, you can activate, a website in, like, I can do that for you in like 5 minutes using tools today that you can just pay them per month, and your website is running. Like, your website is running. Does that mean you have a successful e-commerce? No. So that's the biggest challenge that people are facing, is that it was underestimated. Because it was underestimated, the investments and the infrastructure that needed to be in place to pull it off, people overlooked it, or people felt, so there's a patchwork now versus going back to the drawing board and really mapping out, road networks, warehousing, logistics, the systems, the technology as well, all of that. So what I would say is there are two ways to look at this. One is what needs to happen long term for people who want to play in that space long term. And then the second piece is, in the short term, in the interim, what can you do? Which I think is your other question. Now, personalizing it to you, what would I advise you to do where you can actually make money in e-commerce? So I'm going to go there. So the long-term thing is back to the drawing board, making sure the road networks are in place, the numbering of houses. There are so many stories that go wrong where you have like, I remember maybe 8 years ago, there were some proposals I put in place. I was engaging with some government that you really have to embark on a house renumbering project. That was maybe 10 years. I can't remember, because there are so many things I've been doing behind the scenes, even while I was in corporate, that wasn't visible to the world. But this time around, I said, you know what, as I'm building Nazari, this requires a whole lot of me. So even as far back as 8-10 years ago, I remember engaging the government and putting this extensive proposal together in technology and what it takes, because I've always been in this space, right? So I remember proposing like renumbering projects across the countries, because if you want to ship and your GPS and all of those things tells you go to this location, and these are real stories, the same house address in different states, somebody goes to another state to deliver, turns out it's a house somewhere else. So those are some things the government needs to do as foundational support, right? Road network, house renumbering schemes, all of those things. Because when those are the foundational things that will make e-commerce successful. Now, warehousing, logistics is another thing. Because now, if you're going to go into logistics business, you have to be, you have to build all those things yourself. And a lot of systems are being put in place. But anyway, that space was seriously underestimated. And things around logistics is something you improve on long term. So that's the long term. Now, in the short term, this is the business opportunity for people who want to do successful e-commerce. Because the cost of moving products around the continent is still high. Yes, there are things going on today. Yes, yes. But if you are an individual and you don't have the heavyweight investment behind your business, what you can do right now is making sure you strategically position your website as maybe a luxury high end, so that the customers you're targeting, the value of the products will cover the cost of logistics and transportation. So if you want to go into that space, that's one of the things I would say you need to look at, right? Activating e-commerce in your business, but making sure that if you're just going in now, so there are two things. You could be a business that wants to, you're already brick and mortar, you have a shop, then you want to add on e-commerce solutions to your customers or clients, different parts of your country. That's one. Or if you're someone that you're just like, I just want to go into e-commerce. Well, if you're just going to go into e-commerce, I would say make sure your product is strategically positioned in the minds of the customer in such a way that they are willing to pay the heavy cost of shipping to justify, right? Because you're not an Amazon yet. Like Amazon, what people don't realize is they've had 20 how many years to improve, and they have so much investment in terms of put in place, right, for them to be winning and for them to be doing free shipping, Prime, all of those things. Unfortunately, African ecosystem, they're looking at Amazon 20, 25 years later, and they're like, oh, we can be an Amazon. I'm like, no, you've not put in the work. You don't get to be an Amazon without the years of learning and improving and perfecting the supply chain. You don't get to operate like an Amazon, right? Which is the second question I got about logistics solution. That was what I told the person that wanted to move into logistics. I said, logistics is a fierce place to be. And logistics is something that you perfect over years of execution. You perfect logistics, you learn the market, you learn and then you improve, and you learn and you improve. And somebody that has been ahead of you 10, 15 years definitely knows more than you do. But you can learn what they've learned and bring it back. So those are the realities that I tell people. Like, start your journey, but realize that you cannot, you've not paid the price to say, oh, I'm an Amazon for Africa. Say what? Anyway. So those are the things we try to make people realize, because now they start pouring money into it, and that money is down the drain. Like, whoa, they're struggling. I'm like, you underestimated logistics. This is a long-term game. You also need to partner with your government. The government needs to foot some of the bill or put incentives in place. If you're a logistics company on the continent, you need to understand policies in place. There are policies that allows you, like if you're doing road networks or constructing in rural parts of Africa, there's some tax breaks you can benefit. All of these things are things you can unlock. You have to also understand policies that are on paper that can help unlock that space for you. So here's the breaking news. You don't get to be an Amazon until you've paid the price and you know what Amazon knows. People don't want to hear the truth, but that's it, guys. So e-commerce for sure. You can build e-commerce, but make sure your strategy is such that the customers, that in their mind, the value you're providing to them justifies the costs, right? And again, if you're in that space, logistics is something you improve over time, and you become the best through the lessons you've learned by executing consistently over a period of time. Now, the shortcut is to bring in talent like myself, the best of the best, people that have supported the biggest players, that knows what these things it takes. That's the way to fast track the continent. Otherwise, you're going to spend time, you're going to perfect this over time. There's no, yesterday I was on a call and I said, there's nothing happens overnight. I wish I could. I had to learn that too. I've been humbled. I've been seriously humbled. Like Toyin has been humbled by the landscape. Like, oh yeah, Toyin, trade with Africa. I'm like, mm, you got to, you know, help coach, teach people, because I think we all know what the aspirations are. Agenda 2063, we get it, the Africa we want. But I think sometimes I have to be the bearer of, here's the reality. You want to compete with middle players and people that have 50 years ahead of you. It's either you go do what China has, go and learn from those people and bring it back home, or hire the people that pull those things off and bring them to your board, to your team, and get them to start advising you, and then listen. That's the other thing. A lot of times people don't want to listen to the truth. They're like, I mean, I have so many stories of so maybe 2 years ago of people reaching out and saying, Toyin, what do I need to do? And then I give them the answer. They're like, we don't like your answer, Toyin. Your answer is telling me, no, I'll go figure it out myself. And then they go the long route. And then 2 years later, they're like, Toyin, we're back. I'm like, back? What did you do the last two years? Moving around in circles, guys. So anyway, so yeah, that's what I would say. Okay, how do you attract and keep customers? Marketing, your storytelling, your branding. It's the game. Like, just because you have a website, just because I have this and that, and then our arrogance as business people to think people owe us and to buy. Nobody owes us. So we have to humble ourselves, be customer obsessed, understanding the needs of our customer. And that's why I teach, like this July, I'm hosting a business development and expert development class, like a combined class, 6 hours over two Saturdays. Yeah. It's because you have to apply empathy. Like this whole thing of, yeah, people should buy. No. Nobody owes you a dime. You have to provide a service. You have to tell the story of your service. You get to understand and apply empathy to the aspirations of the people you want to sell to. So, for example, luxury. The luxury world works on aspirations, right? Hey, Toyin wants to look good, so she wants to smell good. So we sell us perfume and we package it and brand it in such a way, and the image and the models we use, they're like, oh, aspirational goals of, right? Luxury is not a need, it's an aspiration. Like, I want to drive this car because it gives me the status, right? Yeah. So we will give you that car, we'll bring you that car and you pay premium for it. And people are paying premium because, hey, that car makes me look good. That's how I want to feel, right? That's empathy that is being applied in the luxury spaces, that nobody gets to buy your tennis shoe or your jewelry because no, you have to do the work of telling the story, of making an aspirational brand and all of those things. And then the people who want to feel and look and smell the way you're telling them is the main thing. They're going to bring that money. That's the mindset I'm teaching people to start having, particularly on the continent, not to lose sight of the fact that how you build a business, how you build your model is your responsibility. And if you do it really well, you get to attract the types of customer that your heart desires, right? Again, on Clubhouse, there was a question around, and I think I addressed that yesterday around, oh, why do people not want to pay? I said, why should I pay anything if I don't have to? But if you want to build a business that people pay you, then your business model, your value proposition must be on point, and your business model must be designed in such a way that you have to outsmart your customers. Anyway, those are the things that we get to share and teach people privately. So that's it, guys. That's it for today. Keep the questions going or coming. ToyinUmesiri.com. Ask Toyin. At the very top, you see Ask Toyin, and you can submit your question. And you never know, I will be covering that question here as well. So thank you so much. Again, this was a question submitted by AES D, talking about Nigeria, or I basically answered in a generalized way, because across the continent, these are things that people keep solving for. There are some winners, there are some losers on the landscape, but watch out for retail in Africa. We already have speakers lined up, but I've not announced it yet. But pretty much we're in conversation with the leading logistics, payments, solution provider, those leading in that space, from the skill set required to pull it off and all of those things, we're bringing them to our platform. So also, if you're leading, and this is something, if you're a leader, whether in business or politics, advancing trade with Africa, or you're a leader in an association or anything like that, Nazaru.trade is the platform that we have, right? It's a my membership platform, where my training, whether it's trade and investment facilitation, AGOA training, business, all of those things, this is where it's housed. Now, if I do a class, those members, premium members, they get to attend my classes because they are committed to the long journey, for themselves, for their business, for their projects, right? So this is where, so social media is not where I live. This is where my work, exclusive content of all of our events, over 50 videos, everything that comes to us from AFCFTA, right here. When embassies reach out to us and say, hey, like Ethiopian embassy, I'm hosting this event, this is where we put it. And our members they get to be the people with the latest, greatest information, right? So Nazaru.trade. So let's see, before we wrap up, I see Adeda Mola saying, hi, Toyin, happy to be here. Thank you so much. This is a new series, like I said. How are you guys liking it? Is it beneficial? Because there are so many things behind the scene that we do. And, people only see Toyin say, trade with Africa, trade with Africa, trade with Africa. But they don't understand that behind it, the core competency for me is logistics, supply chain, and making connections and all of those things. That's what we do behind the scene. So the people who work with me, my clients and everything, they get to reap the benefits. But unfortunately, people out there, they are not seeing the solution, the things we are solving for them, like how we're helping them design and all of that. So I think this Ask Toyin came out of that. It also came out of our newsletter, goes out to more than 20,000 people around the world. But I also want a feedback channel. So I'm not just, putting things out there. I also want to hear from you. What questions are on your mind? What's being raised in your mind? What are you facing? So it's like a back channel feedback as well. Yeah, so John says, create a brand that elicits a certain emotion in your apps. Yes, like that's why the business development class, it's all about, like, business is about service. Nobody cares what you're trying to do for yourself or what generational wealth you're trying to build. Nobody cares. What people care about is what can you do for them as a business. It's the same thing I've done. Like, nobody cares about, oh, Toyin, yeah, good, we will clap for you, Toyin, from afar off. But until Toyin says, I can teach you how to build a winning business and create generational wealth, I can support you by making connections, until I say exactly how Nazaru can benefit you, you will just be applauding for me. You just be, we see you, Toyin. But until you realize that being on our platform, being on our network, or signing up for my service or my training is going to help you achieve your own goal. And that's the same thing I tell people. Nobody owes anybody anything. If you want to build a business, you have to understand the value you're creating and who needs that value and who is going to commit to paying you, who values it enough to pay that. All of that work, those are the things I teach in business development. And I created a 6-step process because I tell people, you will figure this out eventually. If you're smart, 3, 4, 5 years, you'll figure it out. It's like over time, just like I said with logistics, these things, you'll figure it out. But why spend 5 years, 6 years figuring it out? Right? So it's the option that we're saying it's not easy, but we want to make it easier at Nazaru. Trade with Africa, just this morning, I entered the room on Clubhouse and I was just going to listen, but immediately they pulled me up and they were asking questions. And I said, hey guys, these things that everybody's saying, everybody knows what the opportunities are. What's missing is the skill set to pull it off. People need to prioritize skill acquisition. That the best of the best of the best in the world, these big companies that you look to, they employ PhD engineers, the best minds in the world. People like myself, they employ, I have a first degree in mathematics, computer science, SAP certification. So we are solving, when they pull us into big brands, We're bringing our skills, our certification, our experience. We are using it to elevate these brands. That's why they are the best in the world. But then you find people saying, oh, I want to do this, I want to do, and then you take a look at what they're doing, you're like, this is kids' play. You're still playing in the sandbox. What you're doing, what you're building or trying to build, you're using skills that is like child's play. The best people in the world, they're applying behavioral science, design thinking, blitz scaling. They're applying all of these principles that is helping them dominate and win. You have to be humble enough to say, what do they know that I do not know? What school do I need to go to acquire those skills? Right? A lot of times people see the things that I do and they, oh, it's not a big deal. I'm like, yeah, it's a big deal. Try it. It is a big deal. Go try it. Like, try it. Right? So anyway, on a more serious note, when I pull events, for example, together and I say, these are people you can't get. You can't even if you can't book, you can't find, they're not even on social media. Like Scott Ford, who's the single largest private investor in Rwanda, he was telling me privately, he said, Toyin, the CEO of LinkedIn was trying to get me on LinkedIn. I'm like, what am I looking for? No, I'm not on LinkedIn. But I can hire people to be on LinkedIn. Like, we can hire people to be on social media, right? But these are people, we then bring them at our event and say, please give us an hour. Our community needs to hear you. How did you build your business? How did you become the largest private investor in Rwanda? And then when we do that work, I do that work to bring them together. And then I'm like, community, come and listen. Then the community is like, no, it's not a big deal. I'm like, that's fine. This train has left the station. We would learn, we will grow, and we will build our thing. A friend of mine was like, Toyin, how long did you leave corporate again? All the things we see you do. I'm like, yeah, I'm applying the principles. The principles I now get to teach people. I'm doing branding, I'm doing marketing, right? I'm here sharing, I'm telling my story. This is what it takes. We're engaging privately, we're consulting, hopefully people realize that all the things we're doing at Nazaru is not magic. You can do it as well, but you've got to apply those principles. And for me, after designing I'm a solutions architect, I'm a solutions design, implementing the most complicated supply chain logistics projects in the world. That was my background. And I've gotten to move into the entrepreneurship space. I also had to learn. I also have taken classes. I've learned. It's taken me so many years. And then I'm going, wow, if we leave everybody to figure this out 5 years, 6 years, at what point do we get the Africa that we want? So yes, I have my products, I have my things and all of those things. Yes. But I'm also committing with Nazaru to support those at the leading front. Not everybody needs this. Not everybody needs to, this, not even everybody has the capacity to take on everything we're challenging them. When I'm saying trade and investment facilitation, not everybody needs to do that. But we support government, we support private sector, those that are leaders. Yesterday, I was on an interview and the person was like, oh, yes, okay, the youth. I'm like, no. You are a leader. We support leaders of leaders. If you're a leader, then we will help you to be more effective in leading your community. You can invite me to speak, but I don't need to go down to the grassroots. So what we're applying is more of a star matrix that is, leading leaders, coaching coaches. That's really the value, because for me, that's really how we unlock value, where I invest time with people and immediately they're able to get results. And we have a lot of story of that. So anyway, that's the niche we support. Those are the leading front. You have to have something, anyway, just reach out to me if you want to learn more about what we do. Yes, design thinking. It's a key to future. Absolutely. We used to talk about the customer journey, all of those things. Like I say, building a business is a science project. It's just like this Ask Toyin series. You bring it out, you test it, you get feedback, you go back to the drawing board, you figure it out, right? It's a science project. You improve over time. And the other thing is that when you underestimate this space, when I say international trade or trade with Africa, people are like, But because of your, when people underestimate it, they try it without preparation, and they're like the first roadblock or the first order, they run back. And I hear those stories, right? Oh, Africa is this. I tried this 2 years ago. I tried 3 years ago. It did not work. I encountered this. I get it. I get it. But you underestimated the market. And that's one of the things I share with clients that approach us. Don't think that there's no competition in Africa. You know, with what people see in the media about the continent, they're like, it's a green face space. I'm like, they will they will whip you. You will be whipped into shape if you enter Lagos market without preparation. You'll be panel beaten, like we say in Africa. The market will panel beat you. You think there's no competition on ground? You think is that what you see on TV and all the caricature images and things they say about Africa? Forget it. They are market leaders. The informal sector, women dominate the informal sector. Our products move and move in and out. If you don't plug into it, anyway, there are so many stories I could go into, but let me stop right there. So yes, design thinking, yes, business development, yes, blitz scaling, all of those principles. In fact, I've developed a 6-step process that I now walk my one-on-one and coaching clients through. And then again, I have my community. You can go to my website if you want to learn more, and do reach out as well. So thank you so much. I want to keep this series very short. This week, I'm coming in every day. So I'm grouping the questions that come in. We've already done 3. Today is Wednesday. We've done 3. I want to hear from you. Please let me know what questions you have. What do you want me to cover? You get to drive this. This is for you, okay? You get to drive the topics that we cover as well, right? So toyinyumesiri.com. Click on Ask Toyin, submit your questions, and you never know, you might see your questions addressed right here. Thank you so much. And please reshare this as well. Pass it on to the people that really do need this. And again, thank you for today. And that's it. Bye.